hi to everybody. On this, for me, is a first Blues, not a podcast. It's a Zoom really, and a great time to do it really with the with lockdown still there, but fading fast, and the resumption it couldn't come quick enough for most of us. Let us start with let's say hello to all of you first of all. Daniel Ivery, top left, who's you'll know from his extraordinary detective work on the Chinese connections, and I think we call you a blogger, wouldn't we, Dan? Is that what?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. I'd go with blogger.
Blogger, but a terrific amount of work done over the last few years. Below Dan is Paul Devlin, who we know two great spells at Blues, and I think you scored more goals, Paul, for Blues than any other club, didn't you?
Yeah, scored more for Blues than the others, but actually played more times for Sheffield United, though. But strange one.
Good to see you. Looking well. Next to Paul is Nick Xydias, lawyer, Greek Blue Nose, Cypriot, mad Blues fan, all over Twitter all the time. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to this. Yeah,
and below at the bottom is a man I would call super fan, who Roger Fairclough, the cousin of Liverpool's super sub legend David Fairclough, who's not an adopted Blue Nose, but you go to every game, home and away, and I've known Rog for many years, mostly through England initially, and goes to every game as well. Astonishing, Roger. You're looking well. Is it about to fly a plane or something, right?
Yeah, well, God, I mean, so many Teams and Zoom meetings these days, and now I've invested in the Beyonce headgear. So yeah.
All right, let's start then. Let's start with Daniel Ivery. So turbulent times at the club, Dan. I mean, you've the Carson Young situation seems a long time ago now. The Chinese ownership, which is not controversial, but we've lost another manager, 6 now in 6 years. It'll be looking for the new one. What's your take on the general feeling of the place?
I think things are much more positive than they have been for a while. Yes, Pep's decided that he wants to go, but I don't think that many people are unhappy about it. It's a good opportunity for Blues to bring in a manager to take things forward. All this coronavirus stuff, it's not been great, but we have to make do with what it is. But I don't think it's that bad at the moment. You've got a wonderkind in Jude Bellingham. Seeing probably the best player in I'm too young for Trevor Francis, so.
You see the back of my picture, Dan. There's a guy who can remember. Trevor goes solo. That was the 1971 goal against Millwall when he ran the whole length of the field and scored. I was there. It was incredible. Nick, you're there? Bit young.
No, a little bit young. Well, my son, I was born in '69, so
yeah.
I saw Trevor in from about '74 onwards. It was pretty special. I think we're probably going to discuss Jude in more detail, but Trevor was, generational talent.
Yeah, Paul, what is your take on losing Pep? He has made a statement. He's spoken today to the Mail, I think it was, saying it was his decision. We knew that anyway. But 3 things that stood out, really. He's talked about the ambition from the board. And 3 things which whether he wasn't happy with or the reasons he left. The board wanting him to play football, not be direct, that's one. Develop young kids at the same time and get results at the same time, which is a big ask, isn't it, really? You can see why perhaps, he thought, well, he's done bloody well to get where he has already, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when the announcement was made the other day. I was sceptical when he got the job full time, to be honest. But he won me round over the course of the months, and I thought the team did well. He had them playing well. Nice shape to them. Obviously, the emergence of Jude has been a massive buzz for everyone. So yeah, first and foremost, I was very surprised because I do think he's done a decent job. You're putting a lot of pressure on him, saying you want A, B, C, D. It's a really, really difficult league. If you've got oodles of money to spend and you can bring in top class players, and maybe you can put those sort of pressures on a manager and say, I want to play this way and I want to play this style. But you know, it's going to be difficult for anyone that comes in if that's what the board are demanding.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Nick? A happy fan or not that Pep went on? It caught me by surprise, I've got to say. I mean, I didn't see him leaving, really.
I didn't think it was going to be a long-term appointment. His tenure began with us signing a lot of players. It was a little bit reminiscent of when Redknapp began his first full season. And we began with this experiment with Villalba, possession-based football. And then when we reverted to using Scott Hogan properly, changed the way we play and much more effectively. But I think that this summer for Blues fans, I think, will be quite a pivotal summer, because if you think about the players that are leaving in terms of the wage bill, you know, Magoma, Stockdale, Craig Gardner, Jonathan Grounds, the wage bill is going to be reduced quite significantly. Jude Bellingham seems destined to go, and it's, you know, once in a decade opportunity to really buy some quality in, subject to the finances being juggled. So, you know, and we're safe effectively in terms of the league. We can play out 9 games with relative ease. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's going to be a huge summer in terms of building a squad. And, you know, we're going to have that cycle again where a lot of new players are going to have to bed in quite quickly.
Yeah. As a fan who sees nearly all the games, Roger, what's the general mood, do you think, from the fans, the travelling fans as well?
I'm like you, Chris. I didn't see it coming, really. I was quite surprised with it. I commented on a LinkedIn post actually about a week or so ago. You know, because everyone was, I can't remember where it came from now, but I was obviously tagged in, and everybody was saying who they wanted next, and it was this and that, and I was thinking, well, hang on a minute, let's just recognise, you know, what the guy's done, really, and I think, you know, the fact that he's brought in the younger players, he's got us settled, he's got us a style of football that we like, and we like to see. I think, you know, I think I speak for the other fans that go home and away that say, you know, we're surprised, and you know, and I'm quite happy with the way that we were progressing under him, really.
Chris,
Yeah,
just one point. I mean, you know, there's a clue in the fact that he wasn't made permanent until, you know, Gary Monk made those jibes as interim for quite a few months.
Mm. Yeah, just to go back to the quotes today, he says, Pep, that the job has been done, and now he's saying, I would like to do my project together with my club. Just not reading between the lines, but Daniel Ivery, does that indicate that, you know, there was maybe a bit of interference, that he didn't really have the kind of run that he wanted, that the ownership and the administration there at the moment is putting too much pressure on him, and he doesn't really have the control that he would want? And that's a very common thing in football, isn't it? You see so many fallouts because of it.
I think it's definitely possible. There's long been rumours that there's been interference from the board. I think we all know that, you know, that they wanted a lot more than we were achieving. Whether that's caused them to walk away, I can't say for sure, but I guess it would have had a bearing on his thinking. I would have thought that with like 9 games to go, he might have met them and to find out what their plans are for next season. And I guess that would be a good time to say, well, you know, it's time to move on. If those plans were not, if there was too much pressure can be put on him, or not enough ambition shown, or not enough finances shown, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It seems to me, I mean, the board's ambition is not, they're not short of ambition, are they? It's, you know, they've chucked a lot of money at it over the last few years. It's just the way it's been administered, isn't it? That's the problem. I mean, I think we've all sort of looked at it and thought, have we got the right guy in terms of running the football club, the administration side of it? I mean, Wolves have got you know, an agent running the club effectively, fantastic contacts, but the structure of the club is right. I mean, a lot of fans would say that Blues is not right at the moment.
I think there's just at the moment there's been a clash of personalities. So if you look at, and it's been going on for some time, you look at Panos, he fell out with Rowett big time. There was a clash of personalities there. I think Harry Redknapp and Dong definitely fell out before the end. I think, well, we all know that Monk and Dong fell out. That was obvious. And I think that's part of the problem is that at the top when you've got these sort of alpha male type figures at the top, it's really hard for them to bond together, and that's what you really need. You need a manager and a CEO and the rest of the staff to come together and work together. And until that happens, until they find someone that they've got that cohesion with, we're doomed to repeat the cycle. I think that's the biggest thing, is that the next manager they hire, they're going to hire someone who understands how the Chinese work, and maybe who understands where the pressure on the board is coming from as well, because the pressure that the board put on the manager comes from somewhere else. It comes from the owners. They're feeling the pressure too. So I think whoever comes in has got to understand that things aren't as simple as just, go out and win games.
Yeah. Is transparency a thing? The Chinese, I mean, you have done a lot of research around the club the last few years. The Chinese do tend to keep their cards close to their chest, don't they? And that, I think, is a problem for some fans as well, because they just don't know what's going on.
They do, but
it's the Chinese way, isn't it?
They do operate in a different way, and I think they're loath to trust people they don't know. But that's the same as anywhere else. You trust the people you know. I do think that they've got long. They don't want failure. They're not doing this to mess the club up. It's a learning curve for them. And Wolves are a good example. Wolves, the first 2 years Fosun were there, were terrible. And it wasn't until they hooked up with Jorge Mendes that it kind of came together. Blues tried a similar thing with Darren Dean, which failed. And I think James Featherstone was kind of like in a similar position.
People pulling in different directions.
Well, it is, but it's about finding that cohesion. I really do think that's what this summer's going to be about. It's going to be about finding people who can all work together, not scrapping with each other, like sniping each other in the press and things like that, but actually working together to achieve a common goal. Yeah.
Nick, you're shaking your head a bit there and looking a bit vexed.
I think I agree with what Dan says. I think, unless there's something around the corner which nobody can foresee, the position of Dong is cemented as the person in charge of the club. And I think, we have this cycle of boom and bust. We have 1 minute it's looking bleak, and last summer nobody saw us signing Sunic or signing Villalba, and suddenly money's found for these players. And I think what I certainly crave, stability. Stability. 6 managers in 3 years isn't a recipe for success. And I think most of us would like to see the club, one season finish 12th, next season finish 9th, and just gradually make baby steps towards solid progression.
Yeah, interesting, Paul, from the football side. As Nick said there, Villalba and the Spanish. We all thought, oh, this is it. This is the start of the passing Blues. The change of the DNA, and that's gone out the window. All the Spanish people have gone. Absolutely no idea. I mean, Dan Ivery will know more about the connection with the Spanish. Blues been a parent club of. But in terms of the football, Paul, are you disappointed that the Blues are not playing progressive stuff again? It's gone sort of back to mix and match, really, and maybe that's why Pep's gone. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you have to cut your cloth accordingly. Being brutally honest, you just mentioned Villalba and people like that. They weren't good enough. They weren't good enough to play week in, week out at that level in the first team. So you've got to go with your strongest team. And if the players in your strongest team can't or don't want to play like that, you have to play a certain way. I mean, to get the most out of Djukovic, which Hogan has done, you put someone up front alongside him and you get the ball up to him. Now, it's not pretty at times, but, it can be really effective. So, yeah, obviously, we'd all love to sit and watch Blues play like Brazil and have 30 passes and then somebody to scream in the top corner. But, sometimes I think we can get sucked into this, keeping the ball and tippy-tappy for the sake of it. Sometimes a long ball isn't a bad ball. If you're just smashing the ball anywhere, then, yeah, obviously nobody wants to watch that. But, you look at Glenn Hoddle and Steven Gerrard and people like that who could hit a 40-yard pass forward and somebody running onto it. So, yeah, we'd all like to see fantastic football, but I don't mind watching a little bit more direct football. First and foremost, what I want is results and consistency.
Yeah. I mean, let us not kid ourselves. I mean, the whole of this business, I mean, if you get results, nobody really cares, do they? It changes everything. Not Roger, you've been nodding along there. I mean, would you like a battle in blues? I mean, it's always popular on the terraces, isn't it? And it's kind of part of our DNA a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really. I mean, yeah, we tried the fancy football with Zola, didn't it? And we saw what happened there. I think the only time it worked this season, it was actually live on Sky. I think was it against Middlesbrough when Valabra scored that goal, and instantly think, oh wow, this could work. Yeah. But I think as Paul says,
great goal.
It was. Yeah, it was. It was great, and you think, God, could that happen week in, week out? But as Paul said, it hasn't. And you go back to those days when we first got promoted, and we knew what we were. We were tough to beat, and we had battlers in there, and we played to our strengths, and that's the I think all fans relate to that, and see that coming together, and that camaraderie as well. To Daniel's point, though, about trust and transparency, though, I mean, what manager's going to come in when Dong sets up residence in your training ground as well? So surely that sort of like that trust has got to be there in the manager. That leave the manager to get on with what we want them to do.
Is there anything wrong with that? Do we expect too much? I mean, Dong is getting a lot of criticism for. Look, we don't know what's really happened at the changing room, but he is there a lot of the time, I think, isn't there? There are a few whispers that he's put a tactics board up in there, and it's not really his remit. It's just coming back to the stuff we were talking about earlier. But is that Daniel? Is that all right or not? Do you think? I'm
one of the fortunate people who've actually been in the chairman's office at the training ground. There isn't a tactics board on the wall. It's just a board where they keep a track of which players are in which teams. It looks like a tactics board, but it isn't.
Right. So he's not interfering then? Well,
he's not doing that. And there's a massive hedge between his office and the pitch, so he can't see the pitch from his office. Let's be factual here. But whether he's interfering or not, there are subtle ways. It happens. Like you said, it happens in other football clubs. It can be as subtle as like an owner saying to a manager, "I'll just pay 10 million for him. I want to see you playing more," or it could be, chairman turning up and saying, "I want to see this team play this way." Two very, very extreme examples. I don't think it's either of those. I think there's a bit of nuance to it. I think there's definitely been pressure to play this kind of more tiki-taka kind of approach, but it doesn't work. I just don't think it works in the English football. It doesn't work with the players we've got. So when I met Dong, they talked about, there was quite a few fans there, and they talked about wanting to play better football.
What was the circumstance, Dan? How did you meet Dong? I know, he's probably wary of you because of your investigative skills, but what was the circumstance?
I was invited to meet him. Ironically, 2 days before we all held up red cards saying Dong out, which was kind of coincidental, I think. It was a kind of a off the record meeting. They didn't really want to talk about what was spoken about. But one of the things I remember someone saying they were talking about playing better football, and one of the fans just said simply, "You want to play better football, you need better players." It's as simple as that. You have good players; they will naturally play good football. We've certainly had triers, we've certainly had battlers, but there have been players who are a little bit more limited in technical skill, or who just aren't capable of that 40-yard Steve Gerrard pass. And you have to play to your strengths. If your strengths are to get it down, to battle in midfield, to get the ball wide and into the big man up front, then that's what you do. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, especially in the Championship. I mean, Paul Devlin, the remit, as Pep Clotet has gone on the record saying today, he's been told, he wants results and they want less direct football, and he wants the kids to come through as well, which, it sounds like a real tall order, really. You work with a lot of young kids. Can you get results like that? I mean, he's brought in six youngsters. I mean, obviously Jude is a phenomenon, but it's a lot to ask, isn't it? Especially in the Championship.
Yeah, it's a big ask, and I think, to be fair to the club, if you look over the last sort of 6 to 8 years, we've done quite well with the likes of Redmond, Damari Gray. Obviously, there's massive interest in Jude now. So I think the club has brought young players through. I don't think you can put 4 or 5 in at a time. Maybe 1, 2, 3, spread them out over the course of a season, unless you've got an exceptional bunch of young talent, like obviously Manu always talks about the class of '92.
Yeah.
So I think it is difficult. I mean, obviously every club wants to bring through homegrown talent. You know, there's something special about a Birmingham lad being at the club from a 8 or 9 year old and going on and playing for the first team. But you know, he's going to get, and I think all managers, we touched on it briefly a minute ago, all managers are going to get pressure put on them. I think the days of complete autonomy like Ferguson and Wenger enjoyed, where they oversee everything at the club and make every decision, they're gone at every level of the game now. People are coming in, chairmen, foreign chairmen from all over the world, and they want to say in how the team is run and how the team play. And I think it's just a case now with modern day football, you have to accept that.
Yeah, Nick, do you think it seems they want to get the kids in because they can then generate and sell them on? I'm not sure. We are a selling club, aren't we, really, when push comes to shove? But, you know, there's a balance to be struck. But are you, is that the sort of thing that pleases you, seeing the kids? I mean, personally, I love to see the youngsters coming in.
The thing about it is, a player comes in, a youngster comes in, and we get very excited about players. And, you know, some players you can see being at Blues for 3-4 seasons, establishing themselves and becoming, you know, Damari Gray, 2 or 3 seasons, 4 seasons. Then you realise that if he wants top flight football, he needs to go. Bellingham, from his first touch at Portsmouth in the Cup, when he took it out of the air with like a feather, you could tell he was going to be something we couldn't keep for very long. But the idea that we groom youngsters for sale is quite depressing, and it shouldn't be a feature of our club. It should be the bedrock of Blues. In the ideal world, should be 7-8 kids from Birmingham that are good enough to thrive in the Championship, and you added a sprinkling of good buys, and you progress. But the idea that you find and groom players for selling on is quite negative from my perspective. I'd like to see us keep the best players, you know.
Yeah, the last time, Rog, you were around early 90s, late 80s, were you? Yeah. I think of sort of Sturridge and Dean Peer, and there's a whole load of young players, weren't there? But it was terrible times and an awful time to be trying to learn your trade when, you know, you're up against it like that. But where do you stand on it? You just shrug and say, well, you know, we're going to lose the best players?
It's just the nature of football now, isn't it? When they, you know, back in those times, then you said there was a little bit more loyalty. That was there. The big prices weren't coming in, and the big opportunities weren't coming in. And now in this day and age, you know, Manchester United come in with 25 million, and you know, and as much as you want to keep him, and let's face it, I mean, Jude he's a bloke, isn't he? He's not a kid. He is exceptional. I've never seen anybody sort of like bounce off him. The strength that he's got for somebody of his age, I think he's the best that we've had for the best I think I've seen as a youngster, and that. But it's just the way that I think football is at the moment, is that, you know, Blues have got to cash in, unfortunately, and I'd love that loyalty to stay there and be able to build around him. But I don't think the club's in a state at the minute that we can do that.
Yeah, from your professional eye, Paul, I mean, a lot of hyperbole about Bellingham. I mean, really hysterical. I mean, you know, I mean, back page spreads in the tabloids and all the rest of it. He's obviously got a great family behind him, and you see a lot of kids, very young kids. How far is he going to go, do you think? Not at St Andrews.
Yeah, it can go all the way. I mean, I don't think anyone who is on this conversation now can see him stopping at St Andrews for any length of time, really, as much as we'd like him to. But yeah, I mean, he's 16 years of age, and he's got the build of a fully grown man. He's got that maturity. He seems to have a calm head. I know his dad a little bit from playing against him in veterans football. His dad was a good player in his own right. So yeah, I mean, I just hope that he keeps the progression going. I think he's obviously going to go to a big club. I'd hate to see him go to a big club and, you know, play half a dozen games a season. If that was the case, I'd much rather see us sell him and maybe do a loan deal for a year or two. And so I know that's a win-win. I'm being a little bit greedy there. I think that's a win-win for Blues. Get 30, 40, 50 million for him and still keep him another year or two. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But yeah, he can go all the way. He's got everything. The lad's got everything.
Yeah, Dan, do you think, price-wise, I mean, we've heard all kinds of figures. I mean, we've mentioned some of the names there. You know, Damari Gray went for next to nothing. goalkeeper went for next to nothing. Redmond as well. I mean, you have 2 or 3 million here, there. It wasn't enough, really. Obviously, Bellingham will go for more than that. But what's realistic, do you think? And how much is going to go back into the club? That's a key point. How much is going to go back into the club?
It's a really difficult question to answer because right now we don't know where football's going to go because of coronavirus. We don't know. You've got to look. Every club is looking at financial difficulties at the moment. Every club is not taking in season ticket revenue. Commercial revenue will be stopped. So before coronavirus, I would have said, 30, 40 million, easy. Now I'm not so sure, and I hope they can invest most of it back in the team. But again, we've got our own problems. We're not selling season tickets, so we haven't got commercial revenue, and there's wages and bills that still need paying. And unless, the guys in Hong Kong, really do come through with the cash, it's got to come from somewhere. So I guess I'm being a bit circumspect, but I think we have to be. I'd love to see him go for a lot of money and come back. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll go to Dortmund, and I actually hope he does, because I think if he goes to Dortmund, he'll get minutes, he'll play, he'll, in the same way that Jadon Sancho's grown, he'll grow like Jadon Sancho. He'll play for England. That's my hope anyway. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the best for the kid, and I think that really is with him going to Germany.
So we've had a bit of a reshuffle. We've all changed positions. And we're going to go down to the bottom again. Daniel, who, as we mentioned, has been ace detective, certainly in the Carson Young. I've still got the copy of your book, Dan, Haircuts and League Cups and all the rest of it. And you saw off that regime in spectacular fashion. The current people, Mr. King and Paul Suen and all the rest of it. We know, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, the fans really don't know much about it, and you get the impression that the EFL don't either, which is maybe not a very healthy situation. Tell us what you know, and are they in it for the long haul, and do they really mean business?
Okay, so are they in it for the long haul? I don't. Paul Shun certainly isn't. He wants to get out. He only got into it because he could take on a distressed stock listing and flip it. He was meant to get out after 2 years, so he's already in longer than he wanted to be, and he can't get out. Mr. King, well, there's a mysterious figure for you. I can't honestly tell you what his motivations are because I don't know. I know he likes the football. I know he goes to the games. But how long he's in it for, I don't know. I guess it's until the money runs out.
What's the relationship between him, if he is the paymaster, and Dong? How does that work?
I guess employer and employee is the relationship.
So he trusts him, right? He's
absolutely implicitly. I think in the interest of fairness and balance, I should say that Dong, when I was in that meeting, Dong said that Mr. King was just a VIP who occasionally came to games, which I think was a bit disingenuous, but that was what he said. The relationship, as I understand it, though, is that Mr. King is where all the money comes from, and Dong does what he says. It's as simple as that. Mr.
How
King.
Did he refer to him, Dan? Did he call him Mr. King, or did he call him? Is it Wang Hui?
Wang Yao Hui. No, he called him Mr. King.
Did he?
I think it's because the Chinese names kind of I think a lot of people struggle with them. So it's just easier. Wang actually means king. It's what it means in Chinese. So Mr. King's quite apt.
Mm.
But yeah, the evidence is there that every cent, every penny that comes into Blues is coming from people connected to Mr. King. It's the way it is.
If we're comparing this regime to the last one, which ended up very in a sorry mess and left with its tail between its legs, better?
Well, we haven't won a trophy yet. We won a trophy under Carson Young.
Oh, no,
so no,
we do forget that. Don't we? We don't forget that. But yeah, I mean, it was a wild ride, wasn't it? And it obviously I met both of them, and I mean, it seems a long time ago now, and it was a long time ago. It's 9 years ago. Rog, as you look back to that time, and you think 9 years ago, and then relegation, how do you look forward with kind of optimism, or is it just gloom and doom? To me, the feeling I get you've only got to go online on Twitter, and it's I think Blues fans are not happy at the moment.
No, and well, we'll be cashing in on a 10-year anniversary, won't we, as a club next year? So you'll see all the merchandise come out and everything like that for that. We won't miss a trick on that. But yeah, I mean, I look back at that time, and although we were massively the underdogs going into this game, there was a buzz, there was a bit of a excitement around the club, and yeah, that buzz isn't there at the moment. We're way off anything like that ever happening again. As you say, I think those baby steps, like Nick said, love. Let's just keep advancing, and hope some miracle comes in and we get funded, or even another owner comes in that puts something into the club that gives us the opportunity to get back to those heady days. But what days they were!
Yeah, they were. I've just had a little flashback of the penalty we should have had the first 5 minutes of that game against Arsenal. Robbed Lee Bowyer. Is he going to come back, Nick Xydias, as the manager? Popular, wouldn't he?
I think he's a candidate. He's definitely a candidate. I think that my reading of the situation would be that he's definitely a firm candidate. I understand that Nigel Clough isn't as close as some people think he was, and people like Jokanovic isn't coming to Blues. I mean, if you turned down Albion last summer because the package wasn't attractive enough in terms of promotional prospects, he's not coming to Blues. Chris Hughton, he has been very picky about which jobs he's entertained, and he's very clear about the level of autonomy that he wants at clubs that he manages. Lee Bowyer, the situation at Charlton in terms of ownership isn't particularly stable. He's got a very strong bond with Blues fans. From my perspective, he's still quite inexperienced, and you feel that in press conferences he shoots from the hip by and large, and whether or not he would be disciplined enough to work under this regime is the $1 billion question. He'd have to fit in with their vision. He'd have to accept the constraints that they impose upon him.
Yeah, Paul, I'm sure down the line, your name popped up with Jono as well, Michael Johnson a while back. I think I said on Twitter, your fire and passion would not go amiss at Blues. Where do you stand? Who would you like to see come in?
Well, I mean, I'm biased, obviously. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere near the job. I haven't got my qualifications to start with. So I just think it wouldn't surprise me if they did go for a young, inexperienced manager. For the simple reason is, you go down the older, no disrespect to Chris Hughton or Neil Warnock or people like that, some of the names that have been mentioned, they will want to do things very much their own way, and they won't want interference. And I just wonder whether they look and think, well, wait, if we get a young, inexperienced manager, someone who's, not had a job or not been in a job long, and then obviously his first job and his first way of working is going to be the way they want. So maybe they think they can mould a young manager to the way they want him to manage and the interaction that they want. Michael Johnson, he's with the England under 21s now, obviously never had a job. But how do you get experience? He's got every qualification known to man, but how do you get experience? So it wouldn't surprise me if they did go down an inexperienced manager's road. They're going to be a bit more.
Well, they may not have a choice. I mean, they may not have a choice because you both raised it. I mean, you used the word autonomy, Nick, and you used the word interference, Paul. Now, listen, we don't know exactly how it. But we do know that Pep Platet's gone. That surprised a lot of people. Daniel's probably the best place to answer us really on this. Do you think this? Not interference, but I mean, do you think that it'll be an issue in who takes the job? Do you think that the perception around the club is that the ownership of Birmingham and the administration might not be ideal for a manager who wants to come in to say, I want this player, that player? Are we moving away from that now? And players are brought in. Director of football, we know that's probably going to happen. We've had it before with Jeff Fatia, which ended in tears with the Darren Dean fiasco and Harry Redknapp and all the rest of it. But I mean, an inexperienced manager, if he comes in, he's going to be working with the director of football, clearly, isn't he?
Well, Blues have a director of football, just not that actual title. Christian Speakman basically works as a director, a football sporting director. And that's fair enough. Christian's a very, very experienced person, very, very intelligent. He knows football really well. He runs the academy. So, you know, he's the right kind of person to be in that role, and he gets on with Dong. That's the main thing. I do think that that people like Gary Monk will have talked, people like Harry Redknapp might have talked, or Steve Cottrell, and there might be word on the grapevine that Dong is difficult to work with. I personally think they'll go for someone completely out of left field. I really do. If I was going to put a name forward, I would go for Quique Sanchez-Flores, ex of Watford. Knows the league, was manager of Watford twice. He's managed in China with Shanghai Shenhua, so he knows how the Chinese work. He's a name, he plays decent football, and he's Spanish. So, you know, that's my left field.
They've moved away from that, haven't they? Moved away from that.
Well, have they? I don't know. I mean, I could see them looking at someone in the CSL, in the Chinese Super League, or someone who with experience out there, because then they'll know how Chinese clubs work. They'll know how Chinese owners work.
That takes the club in a massively different direction, though, doesn't it? I mean, if you're going away,
no,
I mean,
not really.
That'll have people very upset.
I don't believe so. I can think of at least 3 managers with British experience who would fit, who are out of work, who worked in the CSL. So you've got Quique Sanchez-Flores, you've got Gus Poyet, Chris Coleman. He worked with Hebe China Fortune. Yeah, I didn't do so well at Sunderland, but you know he's still a
I couldn't see Chris working now. I couldn't. No, I don't think.
But this is the. I think people need to think outside the box just a little bit. You know, I do not. One of the big problems that we have as fans is that we have a certain way of thinking, a certain logic, and people in China think differently, and it's difficult to us. It's alien to us, and because they think differently, we think they're illogical, and it's not true. We just have to understand that their way of doing things is a little bit different, and that maybe they'll do things in a different way to the way we want to do them. That's why I really do think that I've heard rumours that they might look at someone with Chinese, who knows Chinese football or who's got Chinese connections, simply because it will make things easier in the long run. I was just going to say, it's funny you're going on about the Carling Cup, because the one thing that is in the chairman's office at the training ground, there is no tactics board, but the Carling Cup is certainly there. Sat on Dong's desk. So, yeah, evidently they've got something that they want to aspire to. They want to win a trophy. So maybe that's what they'll be looking for, is to bring in someone to bring back the glory days. I don't know.
Yeah, Rog, who would you like?
I think. How far do we go into out of left field then, Daniel? Because didn't Robbie Fowler pop up yesterday as well, which is one that I heard.
Yeah. So Robbie Fowler went right in on the betting, which doesn't really mean much. It just means someone's polled in on him. Harry Redknapp said something about him being an up and coming manager. He's at Brisbane Roar at the moment. Yeah. But I can't see it.
Well, I'll add something to that. Robbie Fowler's very good mates with Steve McManaman, obviously, and going back, I can remember talking to Steve at Blues in the Carson Young era, with a very odd role, which I never really understood. But yeah, I mean, if he can put 2 and 2 together, I'll probably make 5 on that one. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Well, I saw that come through last night. I mean, he'd be a name that would certainly attract. I think would attract potential, you know, with those Liverpool connections, you might get some Liverpool kids and whatever like that on the back of it come. But, you know, he's obviously, you know, he's managing the 3rd best team in the Australian League, which isn't a patch on what we do in the Championship. So I'd like somebody that would give the club a bit of momentum. And at this time with COVID and everything that's going on at the minute, we need to come together. And somebody like a Bowyer that was that industrious person that the fans really adhere to, I think that would get the fans on side. Yeah, right. And you know, and whether or not it's a Chinese way, I don't know. But you know, if they were thinking about getting the fans on side, I think everybody, certainly that I've spoken to, as all said, yeah, Bowyer for me.
We haven't really mentioned, just in passing, Nick, you did, Nigel Clough. I mean, if ever there's a man, I mean, very unlike his father. He's not going to rock the boat. He's not going to be outspoken.
I think what's interesting with Nigel Clough is that reputable sources reported that he'd had talks with Blues which is quite surprising. But
yeah, that came from Rob Dorsett, who I know well at Sky. But
I've got quite a few family that are Derby fans, and their perception of him was that he was very stubborn, was a very rigid thinker, didn't like to spend a lot of money, and wasn't someone that was going to set your pulse racing. And I think because he's quite a rigid thinker, quite stubborn, whether he would work well with the present board and the senior management is really up, he's really up for grabs. But one thing that was interesting was that on Monday there was a Robbie Savage podcast, and he was asked about his experience of Nigel Clough, and he said that he was a really good manager, very good manager, handled him very well, trusted him, and he said he'd be a good fit for Blues. I'm not convinced he'd be a good fit for Blues personally.
It's a bit dull. Is that the right way of saying it? He's not very, I mean, that's probably doing him a bit of service, but until they step behind the desk and, but I just...
Devil's advocate is it's about time Blues had a bit of dull.
Yeah, we're not a dull club. Come on, we're not a dull club. Paul Devlin knows.
You couldn't see Nigel Clough kicking the hoardings like Steve Cottrell, put it that way.
No, yeah.
He's a bit too dull.
Dev, it was Barry Fry there when you first time, was it?
Baz signed me in my first spell. Yeah, Baz was brilliant.
That's
he was.
Yeah,
I mean, if we could get Baz back, that'd be great. But yeah, he was a great character, Baz, and I think in that era when himself and David Sullivan and David Gold come in, they got the club buzzing again after a few years in the doldrums. But Baz was a larger than life character, and everyone loved him.
Yeah. So we're not anywhere near really knowing. We haven't mentioned is people like Craig Gardner. That's not down. It's not going to happen, is it? Too soon. Too soon for Craig, isn't it? Lovely, nice bloke, like Craig, great, but not sure just yet.
I don't think he's got the badges yet. I don't think Gardner's got the badges yet.
I
I know he's highly regarded. I don't think he's got all of them. I'm not sure. I might be wrong, but I don't believe he's got all of them. It could be him and someone like Lee Cartley. I know that Lee Cartley is highly regarded.
Yeah.
But
Blue Nose as well.
Yeah, I've got to admit, if it was a management duo, Cartley and Gardner, I would be pretty disappointed.
Well, listen, it's going to come down to pennies and all the rest of it, isn't it? And who's not going to argue with the administration? Listen, they run the club. I don't think anybody really can say that, whether it's Paul Swin or Mr. King, they have put money forward. I mean, there's been some mistakes made with the way it's been spent, and we've just had the recent EFL ruling that the appeal against the business plan, which they won, but there was no further punishment, which is a very odd thing again. But at least a point of principle, I suppose, that the EFL are happy that the Blues were told that they'd transgressed again, but there is no points lost, which is the main thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, as we move into this odd month now, before the season's pretty much dead, isn't it? We're not going to go down, are we? Are we, Rog? Not going to go down.
Yeah, this is Birmingham City. You know what I mean? So, we lose the first 3 games, and I'll tell you what, there'll be panic around the place. But we shouldn't do. Let's put it that way. We shouldn't do.
You'd think that with 8 points clear, 9 games to go, better goal difference in the bottom 3. Unless something catastrophic happens, we should play in a relaxed way. We're not going to go up. We're not going to go down.
Before COVID, I mean, I'd put money on Hull. Hull were dropping like an absolute stone. They'd sold their best 2 players, and they were spiraling out of control. But you never know what's going to happen now. They've obviously got a nucleus of something there, and they could turn it around. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think we will. But like I said, it's Birmingham City, and anything can happen in this soap opera.
Yeah, and that's the way we like it, sort of. It's it's Paul. What do you think? I mean, let's try and look sort of 2 years ahead. Not going to go down, not going to go up. It's club that's sort of got a bit of flux, really, isn't it? It's hard to see any great progress, perhaps. But new manager. Do you see any optimism?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. We're sort of in that no man's land, which we've been there for a few years. Like you touched briefly on the heady days of the Carling Cup final 10 years ago, and I go back even before that when we got promotion and the first couple of years in the Premier. I mean, it seems I mean, it is a long time ago. It's 20 odd years ago. It just seems a lifetime away now. You know, we're a big club. Whatever anyone says, we're a big club. We deserve to be playing at the top level. You know, I don't ever, not naive enough to think we're ever going to be challenging to win, you know, leagues and that at that level. But, you know, the odd cup here and there and, you know, playing in the top flight, I think as a club and the fan base, we're more than capable of that. We just, and we've touched on it before, we need that stability and we need the players that can do it. You know, the term sleeping giants bandied around, you know, very glibly at times. But, you know, I'm very biased. I'm a Birmingham lad. But I do think, you know, all the ingredients, you know, are there for us to be a successful club in the Premier League. We just gotta get them all right.
Yeah, always got the derby to look forward to next season.
Hopefully, mate. I think fingers crossed for that. If they can sort that VAR and Hawkeye out, then we'd have been a step closer to it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, yeah. Last word to Dan, who's done terrific work. I really mean that, Dan. You've done a brilliant job the last few years, and I think all the fans would sort of thank you for it as well. As you sort of look forward in your crystal ball, what do you think? Is it club going forward, or is it stagnating or dropping?
I'll be honest with you. If I knew the answer to that, I'd pick 6 numbers and I'd go play the lottery. I don't know. Genuinely, at the moment, I think the word flux is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, everything. We're at a cross. Nick said this at the start. We're at the crossroads now. A good summer here, a pivotal summer where we bring in good players, and a good manager. Who knows what can happen? But you know, another disaster like summer of 2017 or summer of 2018, and yeah, it doesn't even bear thinking about it. So we have, you know, we should be positive. We should think that, you know, we should hope for the best. We can't expect it. I think what it comes down to is it really is who they, you know, who they can bring in as a manager and who they can sign. And at the moment, that's all up in the air. You know, it's let's see where the chips fall.
Let's see where the chips fall, indeed. Guys, thanks ever so much. Great to see you.
Cheers.
Fingers crossed for the rest of the season. We'll see you around. And as the old song says, keep right on. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.